Hey guys, welcome back. Today I'm going to be building this really simple, easy and affordable perimeter fence around our property. Now, we are actually having a little bit of a problem with our neighbors helping themselves to our property and some of our stuff. This fence doesn't add any privacy, but it definitely makes it clear where your property is, and it makes it so that nobody can unintentionally come onto your property. So stick around and I'll show you guys how to do this. Alright, so this is a pretty simple project. You're going to need a post driver. That's probably the biggest thing that you're going to need. Everything else, a level, tape measure, and a string. It would be nice to have some ear protection, as this hammer is pretty loud when you're pounding in these posts. So here's the property I'm going to be closing in. I've got a post here. I had a surveyor come out and find the pins in our property where our property is. They were buried down underground about 4 to 6 inches, so I couldn't find them myself. So if you don't know where your property is for sure, definitely have a surveyor come out and find those for you, because the last thing you want to do is build a fence on your neighbor's property. You will have to come back and tear that back out and redo it if they find out about it. I'm going to take the string that I was talking about and wrap it around the corner post and run that down the line where I need to put these T-posts into the ground. I'm also going to take my tape measure, and I didn't mention this before, but spray paint's really helpful. I'm going to measure out every 10 feet, and that's how far apart my posts are going to be going into the ground. Next, I'll take the post driver and drive in a post every 10 feet. Now I'm making sure that I'm keeping this plumb with that line that I just put down, and that will keep everything in a perfectly straight line and look great once it's finished. I purchased 5.5 feet long T-posts, and I'm going to be driving that into the ground about 1.5 feet, leaving 4 feet above ground. This fence isn't the nicest or prettiest fence that you can install. I know that there are much better options if you want to spend the money. Right now, with the price of lumber, this is the most economic fence that I could find that will actually do the job and close in the yard and make it really nice back here. So I actually only spent $250 with the post driver doing about a 300-foot stretch of fencing. So it's a really good price for just a simple perimeter fence. And the nice part about it too is this can be temporary if you want it to be. You can easily pull these posts right back out of the ground and use them later, move them, change things around, and it doesn't cost you anything. These posts last a long time, so you don't have to worry about replacing them. On top of the one neighbor right beside us taking a few things and helping themselves to our property, I went to find the last post that connected to the next neighbor down and close in that section, and I could not find the stake that the surveyor put in a ways back. And I looked all over, and I ended up finding that stake in the woods with the ribbon that was tied to it as well, thrown into the woods. And apparently my neighbor had paid a contractor to come in and build a small brick patio, and he ended up breaking off my stake and building that patio over about 1 foot onto my yard. My neighbor was unaware of this happening, but we were able to resolve this as best as possible, and we had to remove about 2 rows of brick before we found the corner post on our property. It's really important not to move property markers, remove them, or move them in any direction. It's actually illegal, and it depends on where you're at, but you can be fined a pretty good amount of money if you try to remove those pins that are in the ground or property markers themselves. Thankfully, we're able to resolve this without any of that mess, so I'm really happy about that, but it did take a couple hours to try to find that post that was in the ground. So this is a perfect example of why you need to have a perimeter fence, or at the very least have clear markers of where your property is, and even permanent markers where they can't easily just break off the stake that's in the ground or pull it out. These T-posts are a lot harder to pull out. They're a little more permanent. Like I said, you can definitely remove them, but it takes a lot of effort to do that. So if I had this fence in just a couple weeks earlier, that patio would not have covered up my property or gone onto my property at all, and we wouldn't have had to deal with this. All the posts are in the ground. You can see here I've got a nice straight line. That is what I was hoping for, and it turned out great. Already you can see very clearly the posts show where the property is and would keep anybody off from accidentally coming onto my property. Now I'm going to be adding in these wires. You can easily climb through them. I know it's not going to keep people out that have bad intentions, but it makes it very clear what their intentions are if they're climbing through your fence. To mount the wire to the post, I'm just going to take a 6-inch piece of wire, the same wire that I'm running down for the fencing. So just do one loop around the wire, wrap it around the post, and twist it with those pliers. I'm sure there is an easier way to attach these to the post. They probably make special clips or fasteners to hold them onto the post, but this works really well and I didn't have to buy any extra materials. Now I'm going to run the second and third line really quick and attach those to the posts. Running and attaching the wire is just about done. Here's the last post, and then I'm finished with running the wire. Now there's one corner post that is being pulled. I wanted to keep the fencing pretty tight so it doesn't droop at all. And this one post is being pulled in or bent in a little bit too far. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a stake, hammer that down into the ground, and kind of anchor it to that rod that's going in the ground here. So I'll hammer this all the way down until it's just barely sticking up out of the ground. And then I'll take some wire and wrap it from the top of the T-post down to this stake in the ground, and that will hold it in place. I'm going to run the wire up to this post now, and I'll actually double it up to give it a little more strength. Now I can only pull this so tight when I'm trying to tighten this down by hand, so I'm actually going to use a trick in just a second to tighten that down even further. So I'm going to wrap that around the stake, give it a couple twists with the wire to keep that in place, keep it from coming loose, and then I'm going to take a pipe. In this case you could use a stick or a piece of wood and just twist those wires, because there's two of them. You can twist them together, and that's, as they're twisting, it's going to take up less and less space. It's going to tighten that post down to the stake, and you can see it's taken all the slack out of this line. There's quite a bit of tension on it now, and they're a little springy. Alright, that just about finishes up the video for today. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, hit that like button down below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one.